From across time and space and throughout the multiverse, listen as two generations of comic book readers come together to discuss a single character or event that shaped pop culture as we know it. Let Your Geek Side Show presents Then and Now with Susan and Kitty. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Susan.
And it's Kitty.
And today we're talking about pop culture's most prominent princess of power.
I'm very proud of you for getting through all of that.
Yeah?
I was like, this is going to be a challenge.
Nope. Hey, I read your Alexa skills all the time, so I'm pretty good. Anyway, turning her back on the evil horde that raised her, there we go. You jinxed me. The sword-swinging warrior learns how to be a hero with a good heart along with the help of her Etherian friends. From 80s nostalgia to a Netflix reboot, join us as we follow her fight for justice across the ages. For the honor of Grayskull, it's She-Ra, then and now. Woohoo! Oh my God.
All right. So, where do we even begin?
I think we start talking about the 80s.
Yes,
and
we
how
do.
the 80s was like a pretty rough time to be She-Ra.
How so?
No, okay. So first off, I have to say, I had no idea that like She-Ra was part of a bigger universe than she was. Like, because I was very small in the 80s. And so when I watched She-Ra, I just remember like the colors, and I remember like Greywind, and I remember Swiftwind.
Swiftwind.
Sorry, Swiftwind. Who's
Grayskull.
Grayskull, Swiftwind. Got it. Anyway, but that's what I remember about She-Ra. Like, as someone who was very young when she first appeared, I know that historically she was done as a response to He-Man. Mm-hmm. But in terms of everything else about her, I really just remember colors. That is until streaming services started.
Yes.
And everyone started like having clips on YouTube of different parts of She-Ra, and now all of the old series is also on Netflix, so you can kind of, dig into the nostalgia there, and it doesn't hold up so well.
I have to admit, I say I was too young for it. I was not born when She-Ra was.
I was going to say,
I'm going to date myself right there. I was not born when She-Ra was coming out.
This is then and now.
Yes.
So the whole point of this podcast
But I'm
is
born
that I'm
now.
older than you.
And I am here for the new She-Ra. But so.
Oh, I am here for the new She-Ra.
Oh yeah, in more ways than one.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I was, and by the time I was born, it was not really a thing that was in the pop culture
And like I said,
time.
for me, I was even a little too young for it. Like, I feel like it was probably meant for kids a little bit older than me. However, I completely remember the colors, and I remember all the different like princesses who all had different colored hair, which like now when you look it up because of podcast research, you learn it was all because of toys.
Yeah, so they all had similar. Yeah, in the research I did for this as well, they had the toy line, and it was much easier. And it even happened in the He-Man and Masters of the Universe series.
Totally did. Like Bo looks exactly like Prince Adam, except with a heart on his chest.
Stinkor and Merman are the same dude.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. So for toy production,
Stinkman.
It was Stinkor.
It is Stinkor.
Okay.
I'm just doing a little shout out.
No, I know this one.
No, you're right. But there's a funny story that I have to tell about how we have a resident Motu fan in the office, Hanson, and he asked me one time, like, "Hey, so Susan, if you come across a specific Funko Pop, can you get it for me?" And I was like, "Oh, Stinkman," and he was like, "What?" And I meant,
"Excuse me, what'd you call me?"
Yeah. Exactly. So now every time Tim talks about Stinkor, I correct him and go, "Tim, it's actually Stinkman." So
yeah, but
I
mean, so many of those characters, by necessity looked similar for the toy production and probably for the ease of animation as well.
Oh, for sure, because we didn't have the technology back then.
But I think the fact that what you mostly remember is just the brightness and the various cast of it, I think that's kind of the point.
Because something about She-Ra in general is the diversity in the cast. Like, as in, these different princesses come from different kingdoms and they have different color hair.
Yeah, and then that
translates into the new series where these different princesses are from different kingdoms and they look really different and all have different kind of powers and specialties.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Please do weigh in on your thoughts on She-Ra, but like a lot of the 80s nostalgia cartoon, it's like I don't need to look for a much deeper meaning. They're pretty pretty formulaic episodes.
Yeah, totally.
And so there are, of course, the themes of like, hey, like turn your back on the Horde, be the type of hero you want to be, develop your own moral code. But I think those themes that were there lightly in the original animated series really, really got taken up in the new Netflix reboot.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. There's no argument here where every part of the She-Ra original series that was good got just expanded and, you know, put their own spin on in the new Netflix show, which I have to say is probably one of the best things I've watched in a long time.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It is such a joy and a delight, and a lot of people are making comparisons. It does strike very similar chords to me as Avatar: The Last Airbender and Steven Universe did, but it's not. And some people are saying it's retreading similar ground, but I think in the necessity of telling these stories and these fantastical worlds, you're going to notice some similarities. But I'm head over heels for the new She-Ra stuff. I just think it is so smart, and it does take themes that they were there in the 80s, but they weren't the forefront because they were selling toys and they were mirroring the He-Man universe and stuff. And I just think there's so many fun things that they picked up on. It wasn't like, and there's some stuff they created from scratch, but they picked up on these ideas that were there, and now they're bringing them forward into a new generation.
I also love, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it. I love Catra. Like so much.
I love Catra too.
I love the idea that she can play the system of the Horde, and she's not bad. She makes some bad choices, and her loyalties are a little bit, but she was raised that way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about Catra because in the As is my understanding in the original She-Ra, like they weren't sisters.
No.
She was just an antagonist.
Yeah, she was.
That was clear and true antagonist.
Yeah,
and so it was
very cut and dry too.
So one of the things that this series does, because the first half of the Netflix, and we'll try to stay away from spoilers as much as possible, because Susan and I are both almost finished with the series.
Yeah.
But the first half of the series is kind of introducing you slowly into the world, so you get the kind of flavor of the week with like meet this princess with this power and this.
Yeah.
But the second half of the season brings in the cliffhangers, the real ratcheted up drama,
Absolutely.
And so it's really great to see different heel turns for characters.
And as much as people are like ragging on the Princess Prom, that has been my favorite episode so far.
The Princess Prom was the best.
I'm watching the internet not like the Princess Prom, and I'm like, are
Internet,
you
watch it again?
Come on, please watch it again, because it's clever, and like Catra and Scorpia.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to call her like something fancier than just that. Anyway, so Catra and Scorpia, their plan is brilliant. Like if you really think about what they're doing at that prom, just saying the plan is sound from the antagonist point of view. Now, from the hero point of view, you have like a bunch of different types of heroes happening, and they're being hit from all angles at all of their insecurities. Yeah. So none of them are at their best, which allows the plan to play out perfectly from the antagonist point of view.
And so I think one of the things that you'll immediately, if you just go by the titles of the series, you'll notice the original was She-Ra, Princess of Power. This is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. So it's not only her show, but it is the whole cast show. And
Glimmer.
Glimmer is so great. And every character has, I mean,
like a power.
Yeah, everyone has a power. Everyone has some slightly upgraded tricks up their sleeve from the previous iterations, which I think is fun.
And like Mermista's not just a mermaid all the time. And I don't think she was all the time. Anyway, she has like power of water essentially.
Yeah.
And it's more than just like, oh, look at this cool mermaid character.
And it's fun because you start the series with Adora, who believes so strongly that princesses are evil. Princesses are so ruthless, and if you get captured by a princess, they won't hesitate to kill you. And so you get to see, okay, maybe the Horde doesn't have the right, I mean, the Horde has been telling her the wrong things about princesses, but you do also get to see the strength of how there's not one way to be a princess.
Yeah.
Because you have, I always want to call her Plumeria. It's Perfuma from Plumeria.
Yeah, I always want to call her Plumeria too, because I love the way Plumeria flowers smell, and I imagine she smells like that. Weird thing to say, I know, but I did it. I went there.
But you have Perfuma and also to an extent Frosta, and you get to see what happens when people want to remain neutral in a fight and be just, I'm a princess in name and I will keep my kingdom safe, but beyond that I'm not going out there. And you have Glimmer, who's the daughter of a queen, and I mean they're all by definition daughters of queens, but she's really living in the shadow of her mother.
But Glimmer is also, if you think about it, living in the shadow of her father too, who was killed by the Horde, who is one of the reasons her mother started this rebellion in the first place. And then you actually, in that one episode, you get to see like Castaspella, Sandra Oh. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, the voice cast, like top tier.
Top tier voice cast. Oh my God. So Castaspella, they still kept all their cheesy 80s names, which is awesome.
Yeah, so
like
we've got
Mermista,
Natasa, Spinnerella, Scorpia, Catra,
Entrapta. Encrypta makes more sense because that's what she's doing. Anyway.
Maybe that's her twin sister.
Oh my God. But so you see that, Glimmer's father also has his shadow cast on her because now she's not that I think Glimmer would have chosen differently in terms of the rebellion, but the rebellion is a little bit forced upon her as opposed to every other princess who could make their own choice.
Yeah, and they're choosing based on the mistakes and failings of their parents not to get involved until the legendary hero She-Ra shows up.
Yeah.
And so going back to Adora, I think it's really interesting because as we're talking about their parents and I don't really recall ever hearing much about the parents or like another generation. I know there were the king and queen who had Adora and Adam. But this you really get to see. They're a lot younger characters. And so you get to see it in the same vein as like Avatar. You get to see the children, teenagers, taking on the responsibilities of the rebellion. And so it's fun because you get the sense of like, okay, there's the naivety of being young, and like Adora does really seem there's a huge difference between when she is She-Ra and when she is Adora because first of all, She-Ra is like 8 feet tall, which I love how many times
they say that. They say it
like,
all the time.
Who's your friend who's like 8 feet tall?
Yeah, and like so when she has this sword that makes her an 8 feet tall warrior princess, and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, but you get to see there is a bigger evolution for Adora, learning to first distance herself from the Horde, relearn what she thought she knew about her friends, her quote-unquote friends, her new friends, the princesses. The first time she goes to a party, which is the cutest. But then like seeing her then take on this... Horsey.
Horsey's a stupid name. My name is Swiftwind.
But getting to see... She becomes this warrior princess, but that doesn't mean she immediately knows how to do everything as a warrior princess. She knows how to use her training as a Horde soldier, but it doesn't always translate. And so you get to see her learn compassion for the animals and how to heal the tree in Plumeria and all these cool things. So the line that always gives me a laugh from the classic She-Ra is that she says fabulous secrets were revealed to her when she held the sword. Nothing was really revealed to her. She kind of got bombarded with information that she didn't understand. She's the only one who can read the first one's language. And so she has to kind of figure this out with the help of her friends. There were no fabulous secrets.
This is so interesting.
Explained everything.
I'm watching She-Ra from like a totally different perspective than you.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I know that we're watching the same thing, and everything you're saying is 100% true, but, like, I don't see Adora as learning anything. Like, not like, in the way that, like, the traditional sense. I feel like fabulous secrets were revealed to her because she picked up the sword, and then, like, all of a sudden she hears the name She-Ra and sees this image of one of the first ones, and then she goes to that temple, and she can read everything, and she kind of still has an attitude about, like, being a Horde superior. Okay, I take it back. You're right. She's learning humility out of everything, but she's like, you can't read this. And has this like arrogance to her, which comes from being raised as like a member of the Horde. And here's something interesting, and I don't remember the part of the original She-Ra where she was part of the Horde and raised in the Horde. Like, I don't remember that part of the series. I only really remember the parts where she was She-Ra, she had her sword, she's sister to Prince Adam and stuff. Like I remember that part. I found it so interesting to watch her unlearn what she learned in the Horde. Mm-hmm. So to me, you're saying that, like, she learns from her friends. She's taking, and I'm like seeing her as unlearning everything. Yeah. So I guess it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But like I'm watching her unravel and put back together as opposed to like add to what she already knows and build upon her character.
Right. And some of the stuff that she is adding is changing or taking the place of previous knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I love the concept that princesses are evil and they will kill you, and we're trained to fight princesses. And like, it's like,
you know, it's something that I found amazingly interesting. And again, I'm going to say spoilers for people. So there is an episode where they have to break back into the Horde because of something.
Yes.
And Adora is faced with all the people who used to be on her team in the Horde. And it was super interesting because they kept throwing in lines of these characters saying, like, you betrayed us. Like, them being hurt by her.
Because she was their champion.
She was there
on that side.
Exactly.
That's why Shadow Weaver is so obsessed with getting her back, and she keeps spurning Catra because she's like, I only care about your sister.
Yeah. And
sorry, I want to quickly before I forget, one of the biggest departures, I think we've mentioned his name a few times, but one of the biggest departures is that He-Man, at least for the entirety of the first season, is not a factor. And I know that Noelle Stevenson did talk about, they removed the fact that, like, He-Man or Prince Adam shows up and is like, hey, sister, you gotta fight, you gotta stop fighting the evil Horde. Like, he reveals her destiny, kind of.
Right.
Like, and wakes her up.
But that makes, I mean, it made sense in the 80s when she was done as a direct response to the Masters of the Universe. But if you're starting with She-Ra, like, you can't start with him. You have to start with her.
Right. And so we've got not only do we have the removal of the He-Man relationship, and there's still some mystery surrounding where she came from, like, how did the Horde get her and stuff. But it's empowering to see that she then kind of becomes the keeper of her own destiny, but you also get to add the interesting and dynamic relationship she has with Catra. And, like, I'm a sucker for shows that have, like, adding a sister relationship where it didn't happen. So we're going to bring up one of my other favorites, Jessica Jones. Like, so you get a character where you get a sister relationship that wasn't in the original source material, but it makes the character so much richer for it. And so I think watching She-Ra and Catra, or Adora and Catra, interact is so satisfying. But ultimately, with the removal of Eternia and all of that, like, it really does place the focus on She-Ra and then these princesses of power who have to save the rebellion.
You can't really talk about her relationship with Catra without also bringing in the Shadow Weaver element. Like, you just touched on it. And Shadow Weaver is voiced by a woman. She is a woman for all, I mean, she's a shadow, but, like, I picture her as being a woman.
Well, she used to walk among Mysticor as Light Spinner, which as soon as I heard Light Spinner
and Shadow Weaver, you're like, oh.
I was like, I see what so there's still some of those storytelling moments that like reference the original stuff where it's like, especially with the names, like Castaspella, I wonder what her powers are and stuff like that. But it's still fun and charming. But yeah, Shadow Weaver.
So again, something that was very prominent in the original is the character of Hordak, who's the head of the Horde and but we don't really see him at all.
He is hardly a factor.
He's hardly in it, besides to just kind of pull in, like, military rank on Shadow Weaver about promoting Catra. Again, spoilers, sorry. But,
because at some point he does tell Shadow Weaver, stop going after Adora.
Yeah. So you have an interesting additional mother relationship. And
it's horrifying.
And it's horrifying, but it's sad.
Yeah.
Like, the obsession that Shadow Weaver has with Adora is sad, and then watching Catra have to deal with it is sad.
How they're constantly being pitted against each other, and how Catra will get a promotion, but as soon as the idea of Adora returning comes up, Shadow Weaver is ready to totally dismiss her. And the fact that the fact that Catra at some point even has a moment of, not even moment of clarity. She's had the clarity long before Adora, where she says, yeah, of course the Horde is evil. Like, I'm working, and you said earlier, she's gaming the system. She's working within an evil system. But Adora was so brainwashed and so fully indoctrinated into that idea.
Absolutely.
And I think to the benefit of this series, but another departure, because we do want to mention Then and Now, a departure from the original series by emphasizing the core relationships of Shadow Weaver and then making Catra and Adora adoptive sisters, and also reducing the role of Hordak. They reduce a lot of the cast of the Horde, because I know that the Horde, there's Mantenna and Beastman and all these other characters that they may very well show up in future seasons, but we do have a lot of not generic Horde soldiers, but the
Kyle.
Kyle. And Lonnie. And you've got the standard Horde soldiers that aren't these fantastical people who serve Hordak relentlessly. So it is a subduing of the Horde, and I think it does make them more menacing, because it is that kind of that fascist state that the Fright Zone is, but you don't need to see the relentless wacky characters.
That to me is just kind of indicative of the changing of the title. Like, it's the princesses of power. Like, the Horde is more of a menacing evil than anything else, because we have to focus not just on Adora, but on the princesses and their relationship to the Horde as well. And before we run out of time, we haven't even talked about Bo.
Oh my God.
And when you said departure from the original, I was like, oh, she's going to talk about Bo, because Bo is like so different in this.
Bo is so different.
He's like a full character.
Yeah.
He's not just like a guy with a heart.
And it's not there, and we didn't even touch on aspects of, there is a lot of, because these are teenagers, there's aspects of romance, and so you do get to see, like, especially during Princess Prom, like, who likes who, and it's cool because there's, in the diversity of the new Netflix series, there's a lot of diverse representation of both races and powers and body types and orientations. And so that's really cool. But oh my God, Bo, I mean, like, straight up, I fell in love with him when like the first or second episode, when he's like, I'm basically the only one here who's not a princess.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty right. True. When you get to Bo and you get to Seahawk, who's, of course, and they kept a lot of these comic relief characters from the original series.
Yes, Bo and Seahawk could not be more opposites in terms of if you're going with like generic male friends, like Bo, but Bo is like the handsome male friend who you could potentially have a crush on, who, like, you know, is into all the same things you are, and then Seahawk is the guy that you just want to go away, and like, yes,
ask Mermista,
just ask Mermista, but if you ask Adora or Glimmer, he's pretty useful, and so you wind up also with the diversity of the cast, with like the different personality types, the different like kingdoms that they come from, you wind up with like different views on these characters. Like you see that, you know, Bo, who's so like not at all the guy that Adora would want to date, you see that like definitely Perfuma thinks he's kind of cool. Like, and it's stuff like that where you see all these relationships that you wouldn't normally get to see. And P.S. I think it's funny that you like fell in love with Bo, because I am like, I'm Bo. Like I was sending you a text when we were watching it. I was like, is it weird that out of all the characters that I like could identify with in the show, the only one I really identify with is Bo?
Well, it makes sense, because I mean, I really strongly identify with Glimmer and her. She's so like relentlessly like, I can do it. But I think it's really cool because also, with the evolution of their powers and stuff, you actually get consequences for, like, if she overexerts herself, she will get hurt.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's a cool element that adds drama to certain action scenes.
Yeah, and I also, so there's that consequence.
I don't like the way you're pointing at me.
No. I was thinking of the fact that, like, every time you see, like, a power, in general, like, I'm talking about anytime you see a power, you only ever see, like, the positive side of the power. This show does show you the negative side, like
the entire Entrapta episode. And for those of you who may not know, I'm not going to spoil anything for the new series, but Entrapta was a straight up villain in the original series as well. So you've got like her and Catra who have new complex roles. She is so Entrapta is the Princess of Drill, and that's the kingdom name.
Yeah,
but like, Yeah, so there's consequences to their powers. There's reasons why they won't use their powers.
And like Mermista, her power is water, and you don't think about the fact that not all water is clean.
No.
Like
or that you can hit people with flowers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Perfuma.
Yeah, I know. And it was just like so funny to watch, you know, plant powers be used in war. And then, you know, Mermista has to do an espionage thing in a sewer, and she's like all disgusting by the end, and they're like, what happened to you? And she's like, the sewer. So it's amazing to see these powers used in completely different ways that you just don't normally think of.
Yeah, and there's a lot, and we could probably sit here for another hour.
I know.
But there's a lot of morality play, both with Adora, and you see like the one princess who just astounds me the most is Entrapta, I think, because she is absolutely like chaotic neutral. She doesn't really have a moral code. She's just got what she wants to be doing. But I think it's really fun because with the updates,
I super love Entrapta, by the way.
And the pluralization of the show's title, I think, is the most indicative part of the change from the original to this new thing. It is not just She-Ra's show. She is the princess of power, but she is one of many princesses, and all of those princesses also have powers. So you've got the pacifist princess who likes girly things. You've got the princess who couldn't give a care and is very sassy. And you always need one of those. I mean, I refuse to believe that every princess is happy all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got the headstrong princesses. You've got the geek princesses.
You have the princess who only wants to play by the code, and that's
rules.
it. And she won't deviate from that code.
Yeah. And even Scorpia is a princess. And so you
who
get
winds
to see,
up in the Horde.
Yeah, and you
It's
get to
crazy.
see. Yeah, so if you're not, and if you're not the type of princess that everyone thinks that you should be, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But like, yeah,
I love
everyone in
it.
this show is so lovable and
Dynamic
fantastic.
and
Yeah, and so it brings a new level of depth to the series that I think everyone should give a chance, whether you are a fan of the original, whether you've never seen because I've never seen the original She-Ra stuff, like except for what I watched for research for this. It's perfect for children, but I think like it there's so much more to it than what was there before. But
it does still keep the notion from the original that like you are in control of your own destiny. You can pick up the sword and become a princess of power.
Whether you were, and whatever your station was first, whether you were a horde soldier or a princess in a failed rebellion, you can change that destiny by doing something about it.
Absolutely. So I think that if we're looking for a through line for She-Ra, She-Ra in both iterations is definitely a princess who takes on her own power and creates her own destiny regardless of who set that upon her.
Yes.
So if fans are looking to follow the classic adventures of She-Ra, I recommend going to Netflix and just kind of hitting that play button because the original She-Ra from the 1980s is on there, as well as, if they're looking for modern adventures,
She-Ra and the Princesses of Power from DreamWorks and Netflix. This is, season 1 just came out this month. It is 13 beautiful episodes.
Oh my God,
they're very easy to watch. Again, going back to what you said at the very beginning, retains that brightness. But there's even, I think, and not just because of animation quality and 80s versus now. There's even more colors. There's even more diversity and vibrancy. And the music is fantastic. That theme song, I could use 10 more hours of that theme song.
P.S. The one really great nod to the original is when she says, for the honor of Grayskull, I almost said He-Man's, for the honor of Grayskull, that whole transition from Adora into She-Ra is very, very similar. It's an updated version of the transition, but that arch of the rainbow with the sword and the hair, all of that is very, very much a nod to her transition in the 80s. So,
yeah, so just straight up go to Netflix. You got plenty of She-Ra to watch.
Just go to Netflix. Though she was raised to be a ruthless horde soldier, Adora is able to overcome her upbringing and redefine her destiny as She-Ra, Princess of Power. Whether fighting alongside her brother Adam or forging a new path in the Netflix reboot, She-Ra is a strong warrior with a good heart whose adventures inspire us all to examine our own ideas of right and wrong. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the honor of Grayskull, that is She-Ra Then and Now. For more ad-free pop culture news and content, visit geeksideshow.com. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.